Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're talking about eliminating junk volume for maximum muscle growth. So, have you ever walked out of the gym just absolutely exhausted, like completely drained, barely able to lift your arms, and totally convinced that you just triggered some massive muscle growth? Yeah, me too. Look, we've all been heavily conditioned to believe that when it comes to the gym, more is always better, right? More sweat, more sets, more time under the bar. But what if I told you that a huge chunk of the effort you're putting in right now might actually be working against you? Today, we're putting the ultimate enemy of your muscle building progress under the microscope. We're going to completely dismantle that more is better myth, and I'll show you exactly how to stop wasting your time and start maximizing your gains. This enemy actually has a name, and it's called junk volume. Basically, junk volume is any training you do that eats up your valuable time, drains your limited energy, but gives you absolutely zero actual benefit when it comes to muscle or strength gain. It is exactly what it sounds like, guys, garbage volume. It's just not worth anything. And listen, this isn't just some catchy fitness buzzword. The scientific evidence is incredibly clear in showing that junk volume is a very real, very measurable phenomenon. Honestly, I firmly believe it's the number one thing holding dedicated lifters back from getting the physical results they're grinding so hard for. Okay, let's dive straight into this. We're going to hit the three most common traps where junk volume likes to hide out. First up, trap 1, excessive volume. Then we'll hit trap 2, easy sets. Next is trap 3, ultra high reps. And finally, we'll wrap up with optimizing your routine so you can keep only the sets that actually force your body to adapt and grow. All right, starting with trap 1, excessive volume, or the point of diminishing returns. Picture your standard flat dumbbell press. You know that first really hard-working set? Highly effective for growth. But what if you just kept going and did 10 sets of that exact same exercise? Would all 10 of those sets be equally effective at stimulating muscle growth? Like, would you expect to see 10 times the growth just because you did 10 times the sets? Well, of course not. A second or third set, sure, probably still highly effective. But the stimulus you get from each additional set eventually starts to drop off. So where exactly do we draw that line? How many sets in a single workout can we actually do for a specific muscle before we're quite literally just wasting our time, our energy, and our central nervous system's ability to recover? And this brilliantly illustrates the answer. We're looking at data pulled from researcher James Krieger's massive meta-analysis of 9 separate studies. It shows us the exact impact of adding sets to maximize hypertrophy. Notice that up to around 1 to 3 and then 4 to 6 sets per muscle in a single workout, we see a very clear benefit for peak muscle growth. But watch what happens right after that. Boom. Once you cross that 7+ set threshold, you hit a pretty hard plateau. And if you push it too far, you might actually regress. So going back to our chest example, you could knock out 12 or 14 sets for your chest on a Monday, but those extra sets beyond 6 to 8, they probably aren't helping you grow any faster. Actually, scratch that. They could be counterproductive, because now your body has to frantically try and recover from all that unnecessary junky volume. Now, as with all science, there are a few rapid-fire nuances you need to keep in mind. First, that 6-set rule is an average trend line. Some of you might have volume curves where you don't hit junk volume until around 10 or 12 sets, so use 6 sets as a starting cap and adjust based on your own recovery. Second, this limit assumes you're taking sets near failure, not absolute form-breaking failure. If you go to absolute failure every single time, your cap is going to be even lower. And finally, body parts just differ. In practice, larger muscles, think your back, glutes, and quads, they often tolerate and even benefit from slightly higher volumes, closer to that 10 to 12 effective sets range, whereas everything else usually taps out around 6 to 8. So that brings us to trap 2, easy sets. And let me tell you, this is arguably the most pernicious trap of the whole bunch. Why? Well, research shows that when left to their own devices, most casual lifters simply don't train hard enough to maximize muscle growth once they get past that initial newbie gains phase. Just check out this fascinating study. Researchers asked lifters to pick a weight they'd normally use for 10 reps on the bench press. But then, instead of letting them stop at 10, the researchers forced them to rep it out for as many reps as they possibly could. The results? Honestly, staggering. Only 22% of people actually failed in that optimal 10 to 12 rep range. 31% managed 13 to 15 reps. That means they're normally leaving about 3 to 5 reps in the tank. Suboptimal, sure, but not entirely useless. But get this, a massive 47% of lifters were able to grind out 16 to 20 or more reps with what was supposed to be their 10-rep max. That means nearly half of these people were normally leaving 6 to 10 reps in the tank. Guys, that is pure junk volume right there.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that it hands us our ultimate intensity baseline. If you want to progress past the intermediate stage, you just cannot train like that 47%. The golden rule here, for practical purposes, is that the majority of your hypertrophy work absolutely must fall within 0 to 3 reps from true failure. Think of it like this. If you finish a set, rack the weight, and realize you could have easily banged out 5 more reps with good form, you didn't just do an easy set. You did a junk set. You've got to push the muscle close enough to its physical limit to actually force an adaptation.
All right, moving on to the third and final trap of junk volume, ultra-high reps. This essentially boils down to working way harder for way fewer gains. This is when people bang out sets upwards of 40 or 50 plus reps. They're actively tricking themselves into putting in a crazy amount of work for a fraction of the reward. So the crucial point we need to look at is this specific number, 20%. Research shows that you actually can train too light, even if you push that set all the way to absolute muscle failure. The scientific cutoff seems to sit right around 20% of your 1-rep max. If the weight you're lifting is lighter than 20% of your absolute max, it literally just does not provide enough mechanical tension to optimally stimulate muscle growth. I don't care how badly it burns. If you're doing sets of 50 reps, you gotta bump up the weight and drop those reps well below 30.
But why exactly is this such a trap? Well, ultra-high rep sets carry massive downsides. First off, you get absolutely no added hypertrophic or muscle-building stimulus compared to a standard set. But you do generate a massive recovery demand on your body. These sets get you incredibly sore, which, might feel productive at the time, but that extreme soreness actively impairs your performance for your future workouts. So you end up compromising your overall weekly results despite actually putting in way more perceived effort. It's pretty much the textbook definition of a bad return on investment.
Let's move to optimizing your routine and see how this builds into real life. We're putting the science into practice. So we know what not to do now, right? We're not going to do 15 sets per muscle in a single day. We're not leaving 6 reps in the tank, and we are absolutely not doing endless sets of 50 reps. So how do we actively restructure things to optimize for real science-backed growth?
Well, it all comes down to how we organize our week. Let's compare the traditional bro split, where you absolutely obliterate one muscle group per day, to a distributed split. If you do 20 sets for your chest on a Monday, based on the science we just looked at least half of that volume is total junk. It's not doing nothing, sure, but it's certainly not making a noticeable difference to your growth. But if you take those exact same 20 sets and just distribute them, say 10 sets on Monday and 10 sets on Thursday, boom, suddenly you've dramatically cut down your junk sets. Both workouts stay safely under that threshold of diminishing returns, and your body can actually recover from and build muscle with all 20 sets.
The latest research actually backs this up, showing that while bro splits work totally fine for beginners, once you try to cross from intermediate to advanced or elite, you're going to hit a wall. To keep driving your progress upward, you are eventually going to need to bump your total weekly volume up. And if you try to just cram all those extra sets onto one single day, they instantly become junk volume. That's why transitioning to a setup where you distribute your sets more evenly throughout the week, like an upper-lower split, push-pull legs, or a full-body routine, is the scientific key to continuing your gains without wasting your time. So next time you step onto the gym floor, I want you to look at your programming and ask yourself this. Are you training to stimulate actual measurable growth? Or are you just dreaming your energy so you can feel tired and tell yourself you worked hard? Because listen, being exhausted isn't the goal here. Triggering adaptation is. Audit your workout, eliminate the junk volume, push those key sets close to failure, and just watch how much faster you start seeing the results you actually deserve. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.